Hey everybody, I want to welcome you to the March Graves Golf Plane Talk. I want to thank you guys for being part of our single plane information. I want to thank you guys for being part of these. Thank you for being part of these plane talks, and all the Single Plane Academy members out there. I want to thank you guys for being part of our Single Plane Academy. I know you guys are starting to get into golf season. We're really starting to rock into it, and anyway, it's starting to warm up. First day of spring just is I think a couple of days away, and we're ready to roll. So we're really excited about it. We're really going. Love what's going on right now. Basically, what we're going to do tonight in the March Plane Talk is we're actually going to have it's a part 2 of Cutting Your Handicap in Half. And honestly, I really didn't plan on doing this, but we had such overwhelming response from the February Plane Talk on the Cut Your Handicap in Half that we had tons of questions that came in. We had tons of responses. We had some great responses from it. So we wanted to do a part 2 of it. So that's what tonight's all about. We'll cover a little bit more of this information tonight, and then we'll really get into those questions, hot and heavy about the last plane talk. So if you haven't seen the February plane talk, I'd suggest going back and reviewing that. Members, you can all go back and on demand. It's on your on demand app, and you guys go look at the February plane talk. It's all about how to cut your handicap in half. And I know a lot of you guys have already started this. We're already getting a lot of emails coming in about guys that are already putting all those things into play. We went over those different topics. We'll cover a few of them again tonight. But we went over those. You guys are already starting to get that business plan built for yourself. All right. So tonight, like I said, we had some overwhelming response from our plane talk last month on how to cut your handicap in half. And tonight, what I want to do is there was a lot of questions that were brought up. Some I answered in person on email. Some that I thought, well, maybe everybody should hear these. And so that we loaded them up tonight. We got them on there. We got them set up for you guys so we can actually answer the questions on the last one. Now, let's review real quick before we go to the questions here. So remember what we talked about in the last plane talk was we talked about the ways to cut your handicap in half. And really number one was, and I put it the same board up here that I did before. Number one was you absolutely 100%, no doubt about it, have to have your clubs fit for you and your single plane swing. The number one question I get is, should I work on my swing to get my clubs fit because my swing is going to change? Or should I, get my clubs fit and work on my swing? Guys, and they always say it's like the chicken and the egg. It really isn't. And I'll tell you why it's not the chicken and the egg. This is why. Because all of you guys want to get your swing fixed faster. You want to get more consistent faster. You want to get better scoring faster. You want to be able to do all that faster. Well, the way to do that is you've got to have your clubs fit to you and the swing you're working towards. Listen to what I just said. You got to have your clubs fit towards you and the swing you're working towards, okay? Because here's the deal. When your clubs fit towards you and the swing you're working towards is what's called a static fit, okay, not a dynamic fit. Okay, a dynamic fit is we're fitting the swing you have today. Okay, so if you got a big over-the-top swing or a big slice swing or a big hook swing, that's what you got today. That's what you're stuck with, okay? And if you're stuck with that and you all of a sudden build a club that's real upright to fix an over-the-top move so you don't dig the toe in the ground, okay, that's not how are you going to change? You start change the swing, now you start heel digging it and start turning it over, okay? And guys, and I brought this in. And I'm going to show you guys this, and I'm going to see if I can pick it up on the camera, okay? So this is actually, and a lot of you guys have probably seen this. This is actually, it shows you actually the direction of a golf ball off the face, okay? And it's a good representation of what happens when a club is too flat or too upright, okay? And I'm going to show you guys this. So right now, if I set this club down perfect, okay, this is pointed right at you guys on the camera. So right now, this club fits me perfect. The club is flat. I make impact with a golf ball. Okay, and I'll put a golf ball even in here. Okay, I'm going to move this for you guys. Okay, so right now, and I'm going to set this up. Okay, so right now, I set this club down straight. The club is flat, is square. And right now, I make impact with that golf ball that's going right towards you guys. Boom, at the camera. Okay, perfectly set up towards you guys. Okay. So right now, this club, and this obviously I brought in for this reason because it fits me perfect. If I make impact with the ball in a perfect single plane swing or decent single plane swing, it's going towards you straight. All right. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my hands or lower them about a degree or two. In other words, the lie would be too upright. So I bring it down a degree or two, and look what happened. Okay. Right now, that thing shifted about, and you can look at it, about maybe 2 degrees to the left, maybe 3 degrees, up to 4 degrees to the left. In fact, I'm going to lay this down so you guys can see this, okay? Maybe this will be a better representation for you guys. So there it is, okay? So there it is towards the camera, okay? Okay, so I'm going to back it up just a little bit because I'm going to try to match this camera for you guys. All right, there it is towards the camera, perfect. And now, there's a perfect set club for me right there and down the line. Now, I'm going to pretend this club is 2 degrees too upright and digs the heel. Look where it goes, okay? That is straight left right now. In other words, that's going over this direction to the left. Or if it's too upright, okay, or too flat, digs the toe in, now look where it goes, straight to the right. So in other words, instead of being down the line towards the target, it's going to go literally, if it's 2 degrees too upright, which most clubs are 3 to 4 degrees upright that we see for individuals. If it's too upright, this thing with a typical 7-iron will miss 15 to 20, up to 15 to 20 yards left of the target. Think about that. That's 30, 40, 50 feet left of the target, okay? And vice versa. Guys, I cannot stress enough how critical it is to have a club fit to you for length, lie angle, shaft flex, grip size, to fit for the swing you're working towards. Because not only number one will allow you to make changes, number two, it'll allow you to make changes faster. That's huge, okay? Guys, don't fight your equipment. Very simple. Email me at timg@graysgolf.com. We'll start setting up a dialogue, whether you're fitting the clubs you currently have, okay, or whether you are working or you want to get some new clubs or something adjusted, whatever it is, we'll help you through it, okay? That's number one. Clubs have to fit you. Here's number two, putting. Guys, putting's up to 50% of the game. For the average golfer, it's 42% of the game. For 30 handicap, it's close to 50% of the game. So if you're not working on your putting and you're not working on a way to improve your putting indoor and outdoor when you're practicing, there's no way you can affect your scoring. There's no way you can cut your handicap in half if you're not working on half of your game, okay? You remember what we did and talked about last week was we put an Excalibur down. We said we got to double the amount of makes because I wanted you guys to test yourself. So we took an Excalibur, okay? We set the Excalibur down. And basically what we did is we said, take 5 balls, putt 5 balls. How many do you make putting 5 golf balls, okay? So we set that down, said, how many do you make putting 5 golf balls, okay? And then what we did is we said, all right, now, let's say you made 2 out of 5. Now we want to double that, okay? We want to make 4 out of 5. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to go work on it, you're going to work on it, okay? And now notice I said, putt 5 golf balls 10 times or putt 5 golf balls 5 times, whatever you guys have time for, but go get an average, okay? In other words, don't just do it once and get lucky and make 3 out of 5. Do it 5, putt 5 balls, how many did you make? Do it again, putt 5 balls, how many did you make? Putt 5 balls, how many did you make? Get an average. Now, let's go work on doubling that. Guys, we're building a business plan, okay? And remember what I told you guys about this. As I said, it's critical that we make those, we're going to set this up as basically, this is a 3-foot putt. Okay, and the reason is because we're going to increase that bullseye around the golf hole. Okay, the average professional will make 97% of the 3-foot putts inside. The average 20 handicap doesn't make half of them. Okay, and I also saw a really interesting stat the other day, and it was on TV, and maybe you guys saw it during the Players Championship. They're talking about this gentleman who's made these new stats, the amount of strokes gained and different things. It's pretty amazing stuff. And he said this, and I'll probably get the stat wrong, but it was pretty interesting. He said from 10 feet, okay, from 10 feet, if you take a 10-foot putt, professionals will make between 30 and 40% of 10-foot putts, okay? But on 10-foot putts, they get 95% of the putts to the hole. So in other words, basically 9 out of 10 or more of 10-foot putts, they get to the hole or past the hole, so they get a chance to make them. The average 20 handicap golfer leaves half of the 10-foot putts short. So listen to what I just said here. So a scratch player or a professional from just a 10-foot putt will actually they make just over 30%. They make on just between 30 and 40%, okay? 50% putts from 6 foot 6 inches, but they will get over 9. They actually get almost 95% of those putts to the hole or more. I know that seems like, well, who doesn't get a 10-foot putt to the hole? Well, 20 handicap golfers leave half of them short. That's just a stat that's done over time. So, guys, putting's critical, okay? The next thing we talked about was chipping. And I did with chipping is I put a landing zone out, okay? So I put 2 clubs down, and I said what I wanted you guys to do was go from 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, and go back and hit 10 balls and see how many you can hit in that landing zone and get another average. And then I want you to be able to start doubling that. Remember what I told you guys. I said, there's no doubt about it that the biggest issue I see when I'm doing my short game schools or teaching schools is golfers have difficulty hitting a spot or trying to hitting a landing zone, what we call a landing zone. But golfers have difficulty trying to hit a landing zone on a golf course, okay? They may chip decent, but they basically have no touch, no feel, and they can't hit a particular spot. So if I'm trying to hit, a 20% fly, 80% roll, I'm trying to land this just on the green, but I miss it by 10 feet or 15 feet, it's going to go 10 or 15 feet past the hole. Or if I land it 10 or 15 feet short, it's going to come up 10 or 15 feet short of the hole. So we've got to be able to hit that landing zone, okay? The next thing I talked about here was swing fundamentals. And what I really talked about on that was I said, you need to figure out what is your weakest fundamental. What is the number one, no doubt about it? Is your grip? Is it your setup? Is it your takeaway? Okay, what is it? What's your weakest fundamental? And then remember I talked about, I said we need to attack that with vengeance, okay? And a lot of you guys like that word, attack it with vengeance, or that little saying, attack with vengeance. But we've got, guys, and here's the interesting part. If you right now, let's say it was your grip, and that webinar I just did was a month ago, okay? If you right now had sat there and worked on your grip every single day, every day, okay? So literally, you took a grip training club, and so you just sat there and swung this inside. Or you sit there and, I always talk about, I love my short game impact training club, okay? But we take those and we swing them inside. You guys do work on this, just work on this inside with this grip and go back and forth. Let's say you do this every single day. Guys, they say, and we talk about it a lot, it takes basically 21 days to create a new habit that'll stick, that won't disappear overnight, okay? Working on every single day. Well, just sitting inside, working on that habit of just swinging the club inside and working on that feel of that club and checking the hands and checking that grip and so on, you could already have got a lot of that already taken care of. Just doing that since the last webinar, okay? That's the whole point here. That's the business plan we're developing. And then the last one on here, because it's the number one question we get. So the top four really, the number crunchers. What are we going to do? We want to get clubs that fit. We want to putt. We want to chip. We got to work on those full swing fundamentals. The last one on here was how you speed it up. And the way, and how do you guarantee improvement? And the only way to really speed up a guarantee improvement is to get eyeballs on it. Because you guys, we don't want to make it a guessing game. We want to have somebody we can check in with again and again and again, and train with again and again and again to make sure we're doing it right, making sure we're on the right path every single time. And whether you're doing video, presenting videos to my coaches, or whether you're coming to a school, that's really the greatest way, or I'm not going to say the only way to speed it up, but it is the way to speed it up the fastest, okay? And you guys, it's great because even since, up to the last webinar we did, we were receiving, as Thomas told me, we're receiving up to 175 to 200 videos a day, literally, from our students out there. Well, right now, we're up to 250 to 300 videos a day. Yes, it's getting into more in the golf season, but hopefully you guys are ramping this up just because of what we talked about here. And you guys are starting to send in videos to the coaches. That's awesome, okay? It's absolutely awesome you guys are doing that. All right, so I know that was the nickel dime tour of what we went over last time, okay? And like I said, if you really want to see how we really set all that up, review the February Plane Talk. Get in there, look at that, and it showed you the very specifics how we're going to do that and set up that business plan for you guys. But what I want to do tonight, because I want to make sure we got enough time to cover these, because we got about, I think, 10 or 12 questions that we want to get through tonight. We had some really good questions that came in from last week, and I want to be able to go over those, okay? So I think we got the first question. We got it up right here? All right. Should the ball be moved from the front heel progressively back in the stance, starting with the driver and back to the short irons, okay? Yeah, so let's talk about that, okay? And basically what that is, and I've got my paradigm driver here, okay? And I have it set up here. And I'm going to show you, and really it's pretty simple if you use our training tool, because right now, I'm going to set this up on this training tool, but if you look at this, okay, there's two things I want to bring up here. This is the alignment and ball position trainer, okay? And guys, this is, if everyone asks me right now and they say, what is the number one training tool you need in the bag? If I haven't got any, I want one, we're always going to start with this, okay? This is your template. This is literally the template you guys are going to use, and I assume every one of you guys at home has this, okay? But I want to review it real quick just so we understand this, okay? I'm going to bring it in the screen there so you can zoom in and so on, all right? Okay, so basically what you see on this is you got the driver ball position, okay, which is DBP. Got this backwards, driver ball position, okay? And then we have iron ball position, IBP. And then we have zone. In the zone, okay, so we have a driver ball position, we have an iron ball position. This zone in here is for fairway woods and hybrids, okay? Longer hybrids, okay? So fairway woods and longer hybrids is what that zone's for. So basically that's where the ball's lined up from in front of you, that's where we set the ball. And I'll show you this here in a second. I'll do it for you. The other thing we have on here, as you notice, is we have our foot placement. So we have wedge to 7-iron, 6 and 5 iron, 4 and 3, hybrids, fairway woods, and driver. So that's what that stands for, okay? So we have basically ball position on here, and we have foot position on here, okay? So I'm going to talk about this now, and I'm going to set this up, and I'm going to work it backwards, okay? And I'll show what I mean by working it backwards. So right now, I have, and I can grab a yardstick here, and this is what I'd strongly suggest you guys do at home. In fact, when we did the last webinar, Todd talked about, when I last webinar I did with Todd talked about this with me, because this is what I'm continually doing here. I think I live with this thing, okay? In fact, I know I live with this thing. But so basically what I've done is on the back of the ABT, there's a little slots, and you stick a yardstick in there, okay? And I got a little simple yardstick, a little steel yardstick that I bought at Home Depot, okay? I set that up, boom, okay? And now I line it up with the driver ball position. So now I can set up right now, and I'm going to get this yardstick just inside my lead heel. And right now, and I have the width of a driver. So I've got my back foot lined up with a D on the board, okay? I have my front foot lined up. It's the yardstick's pointing just inside my heel. And now I'm set up, boom, in a perfect driver setup position. Width of the stance, okay? And now, and actually, if you want, you can use the yardstick and measure yourself to the distance to the ball. That wasn't part of the question, but obviously we're 36 inches from the ball with the driver, okay? So now I've got the correct width of the stance, and I've got the correct ball position. So now if I'm going to go practice, I can hit it right there. And yeah, guys, I live on this thing. When I'm practicing with my driver on the range, I can promise you every single time this is the exact setup I use every single time right here. And I'm setting up, and I'm working with the driver, okay? So there you go. Now, as you start going to irons, and I'll grab a 7-iron here, okay? Now my ball position, I'm going to leave this up here for a reason. Now my ball position goes to iron ball position, okay? So now I've got the ball in iron ball position. My front foot stays the same, but my back foot gets a little bit more narrow. Okay, because now I'm lined up with a 7-iron position, 7-iron ball position. I've got a middle. The ball is going to be in the middle of my stance, basically. Okay, with this width. So now I set up, boom. Okay, and I've got a great position, iron ball position, 7-iron width. Now, as it gets longer, so let's say I go to a 5-iron, or I go to a 4-iron, or maybe a 4 hybrid, the width increases. Notice, as the width increases, watch this carefully. Watch where my head goes. My head and body go back slightly. So in theory, the ball goes slightly forward of center because the width increased, if that makes sense. So the ball position stays the same. The width increases the longer the iron, the longer the shaft of the club, which will push the ball more forward in your stance relative to your shoulders, relative to your head, okay? So now I'm going to show you this. So here's a wedge. I'm going to set up. So there's my wedge. And you can look by the screen right now. When I set up with the wedge, that's pretty much body center, so right underneath my nose, okay? So when I put the club down, the club's going to be right up against that ball. Now, I'm going to get the same. I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to go from there to a 7-iron. So now, obviously, I'm going to get a little further from the golf ball, and I'm going to get a little wider. So now I go to a 7-iron, a little further from the golf ball, a little wider, and you notice my nose dropped back slightly because the width of the stance increased, and now I'm going to set that club underneath my nose. It's going to be a little bit behind that golf ball, okay? And then I'm going to go from there to the driver. So now all of a sudden, I get the wider stance, get the distance, and now the ball is more forward. So the reason the ball moves in ball position with your irons in particular, number one, is because the width of the stance gets wider. Okay, as the width gets wider, the ball theoretically starts to move forward. Stays in the same ball position, but relative to the shoulders, the head, the nose, it's starting to move forward because the width is increasing. Okay? Now, with a driver, we put it in the front of the stance because we want to be able to swing up on it. So it's just inside the lead heel, and it's the widest stance. Why is it the widest stance? Because we create the most swing, force with the swing. We swing it the fastest. We want to get the most stability on that. All right. So let's go to the next question. All right. When putting, can you have too much forward lean? Okay. And let's define what you mean by forward lean. Okay. So here's what we want to do. Okay. There's two different types of lean when you're talking about in golf. Okay. And basically, I'm just going to define kind of putting in general here. And I'm going to get back in the middle of the camera here. Okay. Here's number one. The biggest thing about putting is when you set up over a putt, we've got to get that ball underneath our eye line. Okay. So if I set up over a putt, and that's why every training aid we have, from the Excalibur to the H3 mirror, whatever it is, they have mirrors on them. And the reason is because when we set up over a putt, okay, we've got to get our eyes over top of the ball, over top of the ball line, the ball, okay? So in other words, the ball underneath the eye line. We've got to get it underneath the eye line. Two reasons why, we talked about in the last webinar, but we'll do it again. Two reasons why is because number one, it creates the ideal stroke, keeps us square the longest. And number two is that when we read a putt, we want to be able to see the same line we get over as what we read when we got behind it, okay? We don't want to be standing inside and see a different line. So we want the eyes over the ball. Now, you will lean forward, okay, with the body to get in that position. In other words, we're not standing straight up. We're not standing straight up and down. We're leaning forward. But as we lean forward, what we're doing is we're now just hanging our arms comfortably underneath our body. We're not pushing them out. We're not pulling them in. We're leaning forward to allow those arms to hang comfortably. And now that's where we putt from, where those arms hang comfortably, okay? This lean forward in the waist is always a little bit different for everybody. It's how comfortable you are. It's how long your legs are and so on. But what that means is, and that's fine, it means is some of you guys will stand a little closer to the golf ball. Some will stand a little bit further away from the golf ball, depending on how much you lean forward, okay? Now, if you lean very little, we're going to have to stand closer to the golf ball, and that's fine because our arms are still clear. We're not moving our hips in the putt, and that's fine. You may have to stand a little bit closer to get your eyes over the ball. If you lean forward more, if you're one of those guys that likes to lean forward a little bit more and it's still comfortable for you, that's fine. Just make sure that when you lean forward, again, the eyes are over the golf ball. And you may just stand a little bit further from the ball. We're talking a few inches, okay? Now, here's the thing, and this is what I see, and the one thing I really want to make note of here is I see a lot of golfers who will lean a lot forward to get their eyes over the golf ball. In other words, they stand a long way away from the ball and they lean way forward to get over the golf ball, okay? The problem with that is it tends to put too much stress on the back. If you lean too much, it puts too much stress in the back. And you may not feel it right away, but you'll feel it over 10, 15, 20 minutes of putting. And with that little pain in the back, a little discomfort in the back, you won't want to putt. So be careful that you don't lean forward too much, okay? Be careful on that. Last thing, and the other thing is so that's forward lean. That's going towards the golf ball. The second one is side lean, okay? It's setting up and it's side lean. So in other words, how much do we have tilt going back? And I know a lot of people call this lean also in putting, but basically what we want to do when we get over top of a putt is we want this ball to be underneath our lead eye, or for a lot of you guys, it'll be slightly forward of that. We want it forward to center. We want the ball forward to center, so we want to keep hit it on the upstroke, okay? But we also want our hands leading. So in other words, we want it forward to center, we want shaft lean on it. Well, what happens is if you lean too far back with the head, you lose perspective of the golf ball and the ball can get too far forward. If it gets too far forward and it gets past that shoulder, we'll tend to arc the putter by the time we get back to the golf ball. So the best way to do that is check it. Set up, put a mirror down. It should be underneath the lead eye or just slightly forward that lead eye. If it's slightly forward that lead eye or underneath the lead eye and you got your hands leaning, you'll have good tilt, or what some people call lean, on the putter when you're leaning back on that, okay? Just don't let the ball get too far forward. All right, let's go to the next question. All right, in a full swing, and we're jumping back and forth here. In the full swing, the club face is lined up to the ball a little towards the inside of the club face. For chipping and pitching, do you use the same alignment or something different? Now, on chipping and pitching, we want to set the golf ball, and I can grab a wedge here, right in the center of the club face, okay? The reason the ball is set up slightly towards the heel on a full swing is because of when you make impact and you're going impact, we got downward deflection in the shaft because of the speed of the shaft, number one, and that little bit of downward deflection pulls the club in slightly. And number two is because the way the lower body moves, the torso moves, it brings the club in slightly at impact, okay? Just a little bit, okay? You don't create that much speed on a chip, a pitch, or putt, obviously. We don't create that much speed to create the downward deflection of the shaft and bring the body in that much. So no, so when you chip or you pitch, that ball is on the dead center of the club. So we set up, and I'm going to actually put some extra in on this. It's on the center of the club. So if I'm chipping or pitching, when I line up, that ball's in the center of the club face, okay? Now, here's the second thing, though. And I want to bring this up for a second. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to bring it up again real quick now. In a full swing, we set the club behind the golf ball a distance depending on the club you're setting down. So drivers set down further behind the golf ball than a 6 iron, or 6 iron set down further than a 9 iron. Remember, it's because we're always setting the club down at body center. And just like I talked about earlier, the narrower the stance, the close to body center is to that golf ball, okay? Now, so the ball club is always set down right below the nose, which is body center. Okay. But now on a chip or a pitch, now I want to bring this up real quick, okay? We don't have all the lower lateral slide. We're not shifting a ton into it. Now we do a little bit on a pitch, but not like a full swing, okay? So with a pitch or a chip, that club needs to be right up against that golf ball. So when you put the ball in the back of the stance or even in the middle of the stance on a pitch or a chip in the back of the stance, we want the club right up against it, okay? Don't sit in a pitch and put the club like an inch or two behind and try to hit a pitch from there, because you guys will tendency to have fat those shots because we're not laterally sliding as much in that shot as we do a full swing, okay? So, number one, the ball is lined up on the center of the club face for a chip and a pitch. Number two, the club's right up against the ball, as close as it can to the ball without the ball moving, okay, on a chip or a pitch. All right, let's go to the next question. All right. What are the best setup feels to manage the pivot point? Okay, what are the best setup feels to manage the pivot point? I will tell you right now, and this can be part of the business plan you guys do here. And everything we're doing right now is great, because everything we're doing right now is you guys trying to fix your putting, fix your chipping. I love it, because that's how this all came about. Here's the deal, and I'm going to bring this up because and hopefully you guys right now are sending this drill into your coaches, and your coaches are making this adjustment, because I'm telling you right now, I just finished a school. In fact, I wasn't supposed to do the 3-day school last week down in Orlando, but I did because two of our staff members got caught up in the massive plane issue stuff that was going on. They couldn't get in for a day, and I happened to be down there anyway, so I filled in for them for a day, which is all good. But here's the issue, and I'm going to set this up for you guys real quick. I'm going to set up right now our setup station for our single plane position trainer, okay? So I'm going to put a ball down here and make sure it's on the camera, okay? So I got a ball down here. I'm going to put a ball down, a few inches behind it. Okay, so I got it set up, okay, and behind it, oops, go right here. And then I'm going to go one single plane position trainer back and 1 foot inside. Make sure it's on the screen, okay. I'm always working on trying to keep stuff in the screen here, because I know we try to zoom in and zoom out here. So let me do this again. All right, okay. And then one in, all right, perfect. And then one in, perfect. All right. Perfect, we got it set up. All right, so there you go. So right now I've got position 0, which is a setup, and I got position 1 in the backswing. Okay. Now, as I set up, and this right here is the length of a 6 iron. Okay, so I'm gonna choke down a single plane position trainer. And as I choke down on this, okay, right now I've got the length of a 6 iron. Okay. Now, this is touching my pivot point. So right now, you guys, it wouldn't hurt right now when you set up in a good single plane position setup. You guys need to study that and look at that, okay? Right now, it's touching my pivot point. So on the side right now, it is touching my pivot point, basically in the middle of my rib cage. Now, it's going to be a little bit different for everybody, because some of you guys are tall, some of you guys are short, some of you have long legs, some of you have short legs. But for most, it's basically right in the middle of the rib cage. Some may be a little lower, maybe a little bit higher. That's our single plane setup, okay? We're in the middle, okay. Now, I go from there to position 1. When I go to position 1, it is still touching that same pivot point. It has not slid across the belly. It hasn't slid across the chest. It hasn't left its side. And guys, I'll tell you right now, there's no doubt about it. And it's even with experienced golfers, experienced single plane golfers, they deal with this all the time. And in the last school I taught them, I was just telling you about, I went out and walked the line, and I think I walked through, while we were working on this thing, I think I walked through 12 students. And out of those 12 students, none of them were keeping it on their pivot point. They were close and they were doing okay, but they were basically, as they were turning, it was sliding across their chest, it was sliding across their belly. But I'm going to bring this up and be a little bit more specific with you guys real quick. So let's say right now, I go to position 1. And position 1 is the proper movement of the hips and shoulders that get me to position 1. In a slight flex of the trail arm. So I'm doing from position 0 to position 1 is moving my hips and my shoulders and flexing my trail arm slightly. It's bending in. It's bending in slightly, okay? That gets me to position 1. And it's still touching the same pivot point or the exact same spot. So let's say right now, and we can measure this, and I go from 0 to 1 and it slides across my belly 3 inches. So instead of being on my side in that pivot point, it's now 3 inches to the right of my pivot point. So it shifts 3 inches, okay? Well, if it shifts 3 inches, that means I'm missing 3 inches of hip turn. I'm missing potentially 3 inches of shoulder turn. Well, now, if I only move my hips back, let's say I move my hips back 8 inches, and let's say I move my shoulders back 12 inches, they always move a little more than the hips. If I'm missing 3 inches, I'm missing close to 40 or 50% of my hip turn and probably 30 to 40% of my proper shoulder turn from 0 to 1. Okay, now I know that's pretty detailed information. It's like coming to the bio school, but that's what we talk about missing the pivot point, okay? And it's critical because, guys, if you right now go from position 0 to position 1 and it's not touching the pivot point, it's broken down the side or rolled across the belly, you've got improper hip and shoulder turn. If you've got improper hip and shoulder turn from now on in your swing, you're trying to play catch up. You're trying to compensate for improper hip or shoulder turn. And I promise you, you got improper hip or shoulder turn to position 1, that club will be too far in front of you. You'll come across or you'll drop inside. I mean, you're going to have issues. So we've got to maintain that pivot point. That's number 1. So I'm going to go there in 1. The second part of this question, the second part of it is when I go to 2, okay, if I brought this back into my pivot, it still would be lined up with my pivot point. Now, obviously, it goes away from the side because you're cocking and hinging the hands up and continuing the turn, okay? But the way you test that and the way you check it is it'll be pointed at the ball, which is position 2. Now, if you can't quite get to that ball, take a yardstick, put it between the back ball, okay, in position number 1, okay, that's the ball at position number 1. So we go 1, position 1, we point at the ball. Position 2, we're either going to point at that ball or point at the yardstick. That would still, as long as it's pointed at the yardstick, okay, or at the ball. Some of you guys are flexible enough to get there, some of you guys aren't. But if it's pointed there, you're still lined up with your pivot point. If you get to that position, it's below it or above it, you're not lined up with a pivot point anymore, okay? So guys, but I'll tell you right now, the biggest thing I see short of not being set up properly is from 0 to 1, they break down, not still touching that pivot point. That is critical, okay? Guys, set up on position 0 and pinch yourself right there. Pinch yourself on the side. That's my pivot point. Feel it. I want you to feel exactly where that stick is touching the side. Now, go to position 1. It should still be touching that part, the spot you pinched or you went up against. That's critical, okay? Because just like I said, if it's rolling away from that, that's what you're breaking down in your hip and shoulder movement going back. And when you break that down, you got to compensate in the rest of the swing and try to get back the club back on single plane. All right, let's go to the next question. All right. Do you have a recommendation how to check club head alignment with trail hand on the club? Yeah. Lead hand on the club. I said that, I was like, thought I read that wrong. Okay. So how do you check, can you get a recommendation how to check check club head alignment with lead hand on the club? Yeah. Well, and I'm going to give you 2 different ways. And I'm going to walk up. I'm going to go get this. I'll be back in 2 seconds. All right. So I've got a leverage back. I'm going to give you 2 ways to do this, okay? All right. So here's number 1, okay? And I would suggest and guys, this would be great. Trust me, if you guys are sending videos to the coaches, they're all over this, okay? But number 1 is set up like you're going to hit a shot. You can have a golf ball or not. Doesn't really matter. Take a golf ball. Doesn't matter if you have a golf ball or not. Set up like you hit a shot, okay? Now, put a good grip on there, what you think is a good grip on there. Okay, that's number 1. Now, when you pick the club, now, number 1, if you have our grips on your clubs, you can check them all the time because it actually has the markings on the grips where your hand should be. So right now, I'm talking lead hand. When I look at this, my thumb should be lined up with the mark on the grip. So it's not to the right of the mark or the left of the mark, okay? It should be lined up with the mark on the grip, okay? That's number one. Number two is the pad will be just over top of what we call the pressure point on the grip. So you see the pressure point marks on the grip, the pad just on the top, the thumb's on the mark, okay? So I can go in here and I can go down and there you go. So if you look at the marking on that, perfect. You see there's the pressure point for the heel pad. There's right there, there's the thumb where the thumb should go. Perfect, okay, right there. That's number one. So a great way to check is to have our grips, because what you'll see with a strong grip is the guys will do that. They'll go to the side, okay? And guys, you can check all the time. And these are legal grips. You can take them out and play with them. So you can check it all the time in the golf course too, okay? But right now, you can look at the way it's set up on the club by marking those grips, by the markings in the grip. Here's number two check. When I put that hand on there, I put the hand up in front of me, okay? And I set it in front of me, okay? This leading edge of the club will be flat to the back of my hand, okay? And that is perfect right there. Okay, and I'm gonna line that up perfect. So it's flat. So notice when I put the club up here, so I did that again. So I'm gonna set it down. It's perfect according to the marks on the grip, okay? I hold it up in front of me. We call this the box. You got the back of the hand lines up with the leading edge of the club. That is absolutely perfect right there. Now, I'm gonna give you an example of what strong would be, okay? So now we set up, and I'm strong right now, just like I showed you. So my hand's rotated a little bit past those marks, okay? So it's a strong grip, okay? So now I step over the club right now, and I go, I don't know if that's a good grip or not. I hold it up in front of me. I flatten the hand out. The toe of the club's now up in the air. And you guys can see on the camera, the toe is up, okay? Now here's what I don't want you to do, and we talked about this in the last webinar. I don't want you to roll that hand back. Oh, no, that's good, because that's not how you're going to hit the ball. And I'm going to show you that here now. So that back of the hand is flat with that leading edge of the club. That's perfect. Okay. Now, here's a great drill for you. Take a leverage bag, okay? Set it down, okay? Basically where iron ball position would be, okay? So set it across from it, okay? Now, put a good grip on the club, or what's your grip on the club, what you think is the best grip on the club. Take it back, hit the leverage bag. Now, you guys don't have to pound this leverage bag as hard as you hit it. That's not what this is about. It's basically to get you to impact and to stop you at impact. Now, check the hand. Set up, how good's the hand on there? Check the hand. Because I'll tell you why you check the hand now. Because here's what happens. You set up, and a lot of people will set up good. They'll set up with a good grip. They'll take the club back. They start adjusting the hand in the backswing, and or when it hits the bag, their hands start twisting on it because their grip isn't set in a good position. What we're trying to do right now is as we hit this bag, we're flattening the back of the hand, because guys, that's the most powerful position. So the back of that lead hand is going to lead into the bag. It's like right now, if I was going to slap somebody's leg or I was going to hit a wall with that back of that hand, it goes into that back right. It's not going to go at an angle. It's not going to go with the thumb first. It's not going to go with the pinky first. It's going to go with the back of that hand. So right now, that's the most powerful position to hit at impact. When we go to that impact position, that club head needs to match that back of that hand. And that's why right now, and here's the other thing you can do, and I love this drill, is take a leverage bag, okay, set up, go up against it, and just push that leverage bag around. You'll feel that hand start going forward. You'll feel the pressure of that club, that shaft lean, okay, and that club face must match the back of that hand to keep that face square. So there's your checks. So check number one is just get our grip and look at the grip on there. Okay, line it up perfect. Get the thumb on the thumb position. Okay, and you guys, you can go on our website, and if you want to see very detailed information, go on demand, type in grip. So pull up the app, the Graves Golf On Demand. It's very, very simple. Graves Golf On Demand. Pull up the app, go to the search, type in grip. There'll be 15 to 20 videos that pop up in reference about the grip. They tell you literally everything from how to put a grip on a club to how to grip it perfect, to drills on how to grip it, the cause effects of the grip, to ways that you can check the grip, all that stuff, okay? Type in grip in the search engine. I mean, it's amazing stuff. Take that, put it in your phone, put it in your iPad, walk on the golf course and walk out in the driving range, wherever you practice. Maybe it's in your office, at home, whatever it is. You start working on that, working on those drills in the grip, okay? So that's number one. Number one, you can check with that. Number two is we can always hold it up in front of us, look at the box. Does the back of that edge go with the back of the hand? Doesn't match up, okay? It's got to match up when it's flat. Number three is we start going and start doing it into active movement, start hitting the leverage bag. Go into active movement and see, okay, is the back of the hand flat when the face is square? Because guys, here's what happens. If it's not and you're coming in at angles, it will twist when it hits, and you can look down and check that hand and see it's not squared up, okay? All right. let's go to the next question. Okay, I would like to know what tee height with other clubs other than the driver. Some are putting it very low, so others higher. I tend to hit under the ball if the tee is too high. Any suggestions using my irons, hybrids, or woods with the tee? Yeah. And I can just talk about this. There's a lot of different thoughts on tees, okay? And you guys have heard the saying, some professionals said, anytime you can use a tee, okay? And things like that. I'm more of the guy that anytime you can put a tee on it, use a tee, okay? Now, in some very unusual circumstances or different circumstances, let's say you're hitting downwind, okay? And you're very fast green and the pin's on the front and you got to put as much spin on this ball as you can. In other words, the wind's taking some spin off, the green's fat, whatever it is, okay? Some guys will throw the ball on the ground because, guys, anytime you put the ball on the tee, it creates a little bit less spin. Why is that? Because you're losing some of the compression or the pinch between the ground and the club face. So that ball's sitting on the ground. That ball's sitting right in the ground. You're going to get maximum spin when that ball's sitting in the ground and you hit down into that. That compression between the ground and the club face, that pinch creates the maximum spin. So anytime you put it on a tee, you lose some spin. Okay, but that's okay because most of the time that it's minimal spin you're losing when you put it on a tee. When you have it with an iron, you want to make sure the tee's low enough into the ground that you're still hitting the middle to a little bit middle upper of the iron. And the way to do this is you can test it. You want to hit on most irons, or 90% of irons, you want to hit 4 to 5 up to 6 grooves up on the irons. So if you see where the ball hits in an iron, you don't want to hit in the lower 2 grooves or the lower 2 or 3 grooves. You want to hit 4 to 5 grooves up, okay? So you tee it up accordingly. It's usually pretty tight to the ground to still be able to hit that spot. And the reason I say that is here's the deal. If you're a guy who makes a really good divot, you could tee that ball up just, barely with the tee sticking on the ground. You'll just hit 4 to 5 grooves up, okay? If you're one of those ones that sweeps the ball and you never make a divot, okay, you can tee it up a little bit higher, okay, and you'll hit that part of the club. So it's not the same for everybody. It's do you make a divot, do you not? But we want to hit 4 to 5 up to 6 grooves up on the club, okay? That's number one. Number two, when you're hitting a hybrid or a fairway wood, the best thing to do on that and the best guesstimate to do on a fairway wood or a hybrid, okay, and here's a nice little fairway wood here, is we want to tee the ball up again, just like a driver, where half of the ball is on top of the club and half of it is below the club, okay? So we don't want to get all the ball above it with the tee height, and we don't want all the ball below it. So when you set the club down on the ground, the tee height should be half above it, half below it, okay? And that's because when you swing up on it a little bit, even if you make a little divot, you're still going to catch the upper half of the golf ball, okay? Now, again, with hybrids and with fairway woods, couple things to do with here. So how high the tee is how deep is your hybrid and your fairway wood. Some are really deep, some are narrower, okay? And do you make a divot or not? Guys, we should be making a divot with our hybrid. A small divot, not a deep divot, but a divot with a hybrid, and then just scraping the grass or making a small divot with your fairway woods. That's the way they're built to hit. So just about half the ball above it, okay? Now, with the driver, it's the same thing. So with the driver, when you tee it up, and I have a tee here, okay? When you tee up a driver, you want half of the ball on top of the driver head. So right there, perfect. So if you notice right here, so if I sat there and looked down, half of the ball is on top of the driver, okay? Half above, half below. Now, you going downwind, tee it up a little bit higher, just a little bit. We're going to swing up a little bit more, move a little more forward in our stance. Going into the wind, tee it down a little bit. And guys, when I mean up and down, we're talking a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch at the most. Tee it down a little bit, okay? Because we want to swing down a little bit more, not quite as much spin. But guys, again, irons pretty tight to the ground. You want to hit 4th or 5th groove up on the iron, okay? Hybrids and fairway woods, half the ball above the top of the club. It's going to be a lot lower than a driver because drivers are a lot thicker. They're a lot deeper clubs. Same thing with the driver. You want half the ball above the top of the driver, okay? All right. To the next question. I have a left hip problem and it's keeping me from swinging a golf club conventionally. I've been watching single plane videos and wondering how much pressure is transferred to the left hip with the knee being flexed during the swing. Yeah, it's a great question. Okay. Now, number one is, yes, we move our hips, our knees, our shoulders. Guys, it's a dynamic movement in a golf swing. We move our body, okay? The only time you don't move your hips and your knees is during a putt, okay? When you get up over a putt, the only thing you're moving is our shoulders. In a chip, a pitch, a full swing, everything, we're moving the hips and knees. The biggest issue that we deal with is in the backswing. Yes, you are turning the backswing, you're turning your hip and your knee, okay? But turning that knee in the backswing, okay, and you guys can see that really well in the swing, turning that knee in the backswing will alleviate some pressure on that lead hip. Promise you it will, if you turn it properly. If you turn back and don't move your knee, you're putting excess stress on the hip. But when you go back in a good swing, we turn back, okay? We're turning our hip and our knee back, and obviously our shoulders. That knee turning in takes some of that pressure off that hip. Okay. Now, in the downswing, we're hitting into a flexed lead knee. So we're going, so at impact, which is the moment of truth, the moment of impact, the moment of stress on the body, we're hitting into a flexed lead knee. Boom. This flexed lead knee takes off, puts the stress in that left thigh or in the lead thigh. That's where the stress of impact is now, or the stress and impacts in that lead thigh. So it's not into the lead hip. And this is why, when you bring this up versus we say, and I don't like to compare, single plane versus conventional because there's so many different conventional swings. But when you're talking about single plane versus most other swings, this is where we're so much different. Because when we go into a flex lead knee, now we're not pulling that leg out. Because the second you pull that leg out away from the ball, you're putting excess stress on that hip and obviously the back. So most people will feel, will see, will show, and we've actually shown this through science and numbers, that when you make impact with the flex lead knee, that takes the stress off the lead hip and obviously the back, okay? Because in conventional golf, and I'll face on this one, in conventional golf, they post up, they pull up at impact. Well, think about it. You pull up at impact, what's happening in that lead hip and that trail back? You put on the stress in that lead hip and that trail back. In fact, a lot of conventional golfers, when they make impact, they're off the ground now. Their feet have lifted. Well, how much stress is that on the hip and the back? That's throwing all the stress there. So the moment of truth, the moment of impact, the moment of force, which maximum occurs at impact, you're pulling away from it. You're throwing all the stress on the hip and the back, okay, in other parts of the body. Well, now when we go to impact with the same force of impact as you do at any golf swing, if not more, and we keep that lead knee flex, we're putting the stress right here. So the stress is in this part of the body. And guys, that's what you should feel. Guys, sit here. Take a leverage bag. I mean, you want to do the test just like we did. Take a leverage bag and start pushing the leverage bag around. Push the leverage bag. As you push, you should feel that when I push this bag, and I'm going to close my eyes and push it, I feel a little stress in this trail hip trying to drop to push, but I feel a ton of it right here. I feel the force right here in between that thigh and that knee. That's where I feel the force, okay? Do it. Play with that. Feel that. Why can we flex the lead knee in impact? Real simple, because of our distance to the golf ball. Guys, with a 6-iron, we stand 26 inches from the ball. With a driver, we stand 36 inches from the ball. That allows us room to clear, keeping that low lead knee flexed, and gives us room to clear the arms. Typical conventional or traditional, or whatever you want to call it, golfer, with the 6-irons around 20, 21, 22 inches. I mean, they're 4 to 6 inches, if not more, closer to the golf ball. Well, if they're closer to the golf ball, they don't have room to clear the arms, so they got to pull away from it. They got to pull away from it to make distance to clear the arms. Well, the second you pull away from the golf ball, okay, and you pull away from it, you're creating excess stress in the hips, the backs, everything, okay? So why can we flex? Why do we create less stress on the hips and the back? Is because the distance we create to the ball at setup. So you've got to get your setup right. You've got to get your setup right to allow you to get to the right impact position. The next question. I feel I'm missing something, potentially in the downswing, something setting the club, because setting the club head behind the ball as the instructions state, it seems like I am bottoming out at that point. Coming up and catching the ball on its equator, it's rather ugly. Any suggestions? Yeah, it's not because you're setting the ball behind it, it's because you're casting the club, okay? And guys, here's the deal. I'm going to just, and yes, this is the ultimate right now in getting videos into our coaches, because you guys don't realize you're casting, or if you think you're casting, it's what 70 to 80% of golfers do, and maybe even more of older golfers, because they lose some of the flexibility. If you're casting the club, you're going to hit the equator of the ball. You're going to hit the middle of the golf ball. It's not setting it behind it. Guys, when you set the club behind it, and then you set down into impact, that setting down the impact takes care of that distance you set behind it. That's why we set behind it. It's from that lateral shift. That's why we want to set the club behind it. The lateral shift makes up for that, okay? But I promise you, put the club up against it, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to hit the equator of the ball. You're going to hit behind it because you're casting the club. You're not creating shaft lean in the club and impact. So when I go and hit this leverage back, that's shaft lean. Look how my hands are leading. I still have shaft lean. Looking in the camera right here. It's a perfect view. I still have shaft lean. I'm not doing this. That's negative shaft lean. That is casting the club. And that's what you need to work on. You need to sit here and you need to work on your hands leading through impact. So a lot of people, there's a great question. Everybody thinks they try to put a fault in it. I put the club behind it and that's where I want to bottom out. No, it's not where you want to bottom out. I mean, the greatest ball striker of all time set the club behind it because he realized that that lateral shift with the lower body makes up for that club being behind it. That's how you become extremely consistent and the most consistent golfer or ball striker of all time. But what you've got to work on to not hit behind it, to not hit the equator of the ball, is you've got to work on shaft lean. You got to get the hands leading. And whether you're chipping, whether you're putting, and I'm going to tell you right now, if you have difficulty with shaft lean, go on our on-demand app. Go on it right now and pull up the two birds with one stone. Listen to what I just said. This is going to blow your mind. A lot of you guys, and I'm preaching to the choir with my longtime students and the alumni. I know this, but it's a great thing to review. Go right now and review two birds with one stone. And I'll tell you why, because it's going to get you right back to this point. I'll tell you how it's going to get back to this point. Two birds with one stone teaches you this. It teaches you how to train it teaches you putting, chipping, and pitching, okay? But it trains how to work that into your full swing. And the biggest thing it does, it teaches you how to create lag and teaches you how to get your hands leading, even from your putter. How do you get shaft lean with the putter? How do you get the hands down the line with the putter? How do you get the hands where you got shaft lean the entire time with the putter? Because I'll tell you right now, if you're hitting behind the ball, if you're hitting the equator of the golf ball, I promise you right now, you're flipping your putter. I promise you are. And I promise you right now, you're flipping, you're casting your wedge, your chips. I promise you are. I promise you right now, you have difficulty chipping and creating spin on the ball. Go in and get that. Go into on-demand app right now, pull up the two birds with one stone, pull it up and review it. So what it's going to do is it's going to get you this game plan built. I'll tell you how it's going to build this game plan. It's going to sit there and show you how to build your putting. It's going to teach you how to build your chipping. But at the exact same time, it's going to tell you how to create leverage with the golf club. It's going to create how you get your hands leading, how to get shaft lean, how to get your hands down the line. And it's going to make you do it small. And it's literally going to work this business plan for you because not only is it going to help you with your full swing, which is going to help you avoid the casting of the full swing, which is a full swing fundamental, it's going to build chipping and putting. So guess what? We're just starting to go down that list and cut your handicap in half. Guys, you want to cut your handicap in half with the biggest videos going on demand right now. Single plane solution. Guys, obviously, it's the fundamentals of the golf swing. Single plane solution, fundamentals of the golf swing. Single plane solution, fundamentals of the golf swing right there. That's number one. Number two is you're going to go get two birds with one stone. Two birds with one stone is going to cover this and this right here. Boom, boom. Okay, two birds with one stone. It's going to nail that. And it's also going to work into this. Two birds with one stone. Okay, and then you're going to go look at domino effect because domino effect is advanced work of the full swing. Okay, those three things, and you review those over and over and over again, okay? And that's how you can start to help and set up your business plan. Another question? All right. I think we're getting towards the end of the questions for tonight, but can you quickly explain offset? Offset is a change plus or minus to a standard line angle of a club. Yeah, we had this question last time. I think it was on a membership the thing. Guys, offset is not line angle of a club. Offset is how the club is actually set. So, and I'm going to walk in the camera, and my camera guy's going to zoom in on this. If you look at this club right here, you see a bunch of offset, okay? So the club is set back from the way the shaft goes in. So you look down the shaft, it's set back. If you look at this club right here, it's perfect camera there, there's minimal offset, okay? So we have one with a lot of offset and one with minimal offset, and they're right there, perfect. Okay. Guys, offset, the reason there's offset on a golf club is because offset helps you get the ball up easier, okay? It creates easier height, and it's a little bit more forgiving. So up to a certain point, offset clubs are forgiveness and help you get the ball in the air. So you're not going to see a real narrow shaft, a narrow soled club, that's a player's club, that has a lot of offset, and vice versa. You're not going to see a player's club that's got a narrow sole, okay, that has a lot of offset, okay? So offset helps you get the ball up easier off the ground. And guys, every club out there has a little bit of offset in it. Every club. Some may have very minimal offset, some may have more. That offset. Lie angle is the way the club is set on the ground. Okay, so lie angle is set You fit the lie angle to your height, your wrist to floor measure, and so on. So when you make impact with a golf ball, it makes impact with the center of the club. That's the biggest thing about a lie angle. Real simple. When you make impact, the center of the club makes impact with the ground. If you hit and the lie angle's off and you dig the heel in the ground, it's going to turn it closed. If you dig the toe in the ground, it's going to flip it open. And it's going to potentially hurt you. It's going to cause damage to the wrists, elbows, back, shoulders, and so on, okay? So offset is a forgiveness in the club. Lie angle is sitting the club perfect. It fits you that the club hits the ground at the middle of the club, okay? So they're two different things. Do we have another question? Okay. I'm 6'4". Does it hurt to spread my legs out a little further than the alignment ball position trainer shows? I'm probably wrong, but it seems to feel more comfortable. Yeah, well, here's the deal. And guys, in the ABT here, and you don't have to zoom in on this, it's okay, but because I've already shown you this, but there's zones here, okay? So if you notice, there's zones in the bottom. You can use the extreme of the zone. So a guy who's 6 foot tall might go right to where that D is on the driver width, okay, right at the D. And one who's 6'4" might go to the edge of the trainer. That's fine. So you stay within that zones, because if you notice, there's zones here. Now, this fits anybody from 5'4" all the way up to, I think, to 6'5", 6'6". But if you wanted to get a little narrower, a little bit wider than that, because you're a little bit taller, a little bit shorter, that's fine. We're still going to have the same ball positions. We're going to still have the same distance of the golf ball. Because remember, as you get taller, our arms get longer. As we get shorter, our arms get shorter. In fact, at this last school, I had a gentleman, I think he was 6'4", 6'5" at the school. And really, as a tall guy, a pretty athletic tall guy. Anyway, he was at the school and we were talking about club fitting. And I said, well, it's kind of interesting. He said, but your clubs will only be about an inch longer than mine. Now, they'll be 2 or 3 degrees more upright than mine. Okay, they'll be considerably more upright, but they'll only be about an inch longer than mine, maybe an inch and a quarter at the most. And he's like, but Tim, he goes, I'm 6 inches taller than you, or 7 inches taller than you, whatever it was. He goes, how come my club's like 3 or 4 inches longer than you? I said, why? Watch. Now I had him standing right next to me. We went shoulder to shoulder, and we went shoulder to shoulder. His shoulder was up here, okay, and mine was right here. And we put our hands down, and literally it was like a quarter of an inch off, and we held our arms down. I mean, literally, and I had a gentleman, one of his friends actually was there. I said, look at our hands. He goes, man, they're exactly the same. I said, you're right. That's how much longer his arms are, because, when you're taller, your arms are longer. When you're shorter, your arms are shorter. And I said, but what happens is when he sets up over the angle, so when he sets up to hit a shot, okay, his angle's taller than mine, so the angle down to the ball is a much different angle than me, which changes the lie angle dramatically. And when he leans at the waist and puts the arms in there, we're going to have to get that club a little bit longer than my length, usually about an inch. And guys, it's all different. It's based on your height versus your arm length. That's why we ask your arm length. Yes, we do get some guys that are tall with shorter arms and some guys that are short with longer arms, but we make up for that with the length and the lie angle of the club. We have all that charted out and set up, so it's set up perfect for you in your single plane swing. Okay? We have more questions? Okay, one more question. All right. I'm 70 with bad back injuries. I can't get my backswing as far back as in videos. Is there a big problem, or just use what I do and deal with it? Best suggestions or issues? Everybody, here's the deal. Everybody, as we get older, we lose flexibility. I mean, I'm considerably older than when I started this, and I've lost flexibility. And yes, my short backswing's even gotten shorter. But guys, here's what I want you to be very careful of, and I'm going to leave it here, and then we'll get into tonight's winner. Is number one is that when you take the club back, we're keeping this lead arm. So the left arm for the righties, the right arm for the lefties. We're keeping that as straight as possible. That lead arm is as straight as possible. If that's all you got in the backswing, that's fine. We can create a ton of leverage from there in the downswing, okay? We can create a ton of leverage from this position in the downswing, when we're in that position, okay? Now, what I don't want you to do is if you go back and go, I got to go further, start bending that lead arm. You start bending that lead arm, it creates a third lever, and you're going to cast that third lever in the downswing, and it's going to cast the club out. And I'll tell you something. And maybe someday we can show you this, or you guys can go on demand and see this. We got tons and tons and tons of Mo video on demand. Is when Mo was young, we got video of Mo at the Masters at Augusta National. And when Mo was young, he used to get the club to parallel with his driver. In fact, he'd get past parallel. That club was like, it wasn't John Daly, but man, that thing was long when he was young. I mean, he played in the Masters in his 20s. When we got tons of video and Mo in his 60s, we got the most video we got when Mo was in his 60s. And Mo didn't get the club back to about, with the arm right here was about 90 degrees of the ground or just past that. I mean, why? So when Mo was in his 60s, why did he get a driver to here? And when he was in his 20s, he got it to parallel. Well, he lost flexibility. But I'll tell you right now, Mo didn't hit it really any shorter when he was older. He hit it just really good distance when he was older because he still created great leverage. He still had the club on plane, so he still maximized that technique with great leverage. and that optimal technique with leverage, no matter how long the backswing was, create a great distance, okay? So yeah, as we get older, we're gonna lose flexibility, but just make sure we're getting that, always getting that club on plane. We've got good leverage. We've got, so we maximize our technique with that shorter backswing as we get older, and we're fine, okay? All right, so before we get into tonight's winner, I think we've gone probably a little over the hour, but I always do. Before we get into tonight's winner, let's talk real quick about the announcements. I just want to make sure you guys know this, and then some specials for tonight, and then we'll get into tonight's winner. Number one, schools. The announcements out in the schools. If you haven't gotten into the schools, let's get into the schools, okay? Number two is Paradigm. If you guys want any questions on Paradigm, or if you want the specials, we still have the Rogue ST Max from last year. We've got them on incredible and blowout specials. If you want any of that clubs fit you perfect, email me at timg@graysgolf.com, timg@graysgolf.com, okay? The next thing is, guys, the two specials I want to throw out for tonight, and these are the webinar specials, is this. Number one is, guys, I know I bring up this on demand a lot. I mean, and guys, I assume the members out there are getting on demand. And you guys are going nuts with it. If you're not don't have access to our on demand app, if you're not a member of our Single Plan Academy, I'm going to challenge you guys right now. Just sign up for a month. Sign up for a month and check it all out. You guys can get it. Just sign up for a month and email me at timg@graysgolf.com, timg@graysgolf.com, and I'll help you set up for a month worth of membership. It's cheap. It doesn't cost much. Get in there for a month, and I promise you, you can have access to everything. You can even send in videos to our coaches for that month, okay? Get in there and let's get this thing cranked out for at least a month. Let's get started. I want to get you guys, get your toe in that water, because if you're not, guys, you're behind the eight ball, okay? So email me at timg@graysgolf.com. We'll get you in there. The next thing, and we're getting a lot of questions on this, and the special for this is the Perfect Impact Training Club. And guys, this Perfect Impact Training Club is the one that's got the grip on it, so you can check your grip, just like we talked about, during the webinar, okay? On the biggest thing about this thing on the club face is just got the negative loft in the club face. So all you guys that aren't creating much divot, all you guys are losing some distance, all you guys that are making solid impact, this is a club to get out there and work on making that impact or perfect impact. That's what this club's all about. And you can go on our website, or you can go on demand. You can go on our website and pull up a Perfect Impact Club, and it shows you all about the training. It's normally $130. We got it for $89. So if you want to get this Perfect Impact Club, and they are moving hard, they're moving heavy, and they're moving out a lot, you can get this thing for $89, okay? And there'll be a link on there. You guys can see that. The other thing about the Perfect Impact Club is that it's actually got tape on the shaft here. It's got different colors. So when you go to the top of the swing, you can check to see if that club's on plane or not. So when you go up there, you shouldn't see any white in the tape. If you do, you're in a bad position at the top of the swing and so on. Guys, we've got videos upon videos about how to train with this, okay? You can go on our website, bravesgolf.com, pull up the training, go to the bottom, pull up Perfect Impact Club. You can watch how to train with this. It's a great trainer. But you can get it for, 30 or 40% off, okay, guys? $89, you can get this. All right. So, again, I cannot stress enough about using the on-demand. Guys, it's spring. It's golf season. Let's rock. I want you guys, right now, I was told by Thomas that we have thousands and thousands of search terms in our on-demand app. So right now, if you go to our on-demand app, you pull up search, you can go in there and search, bunker. You can search, you can search divot. You can search grip. You can search backswing. You can search pivot point. You can search, whatever you want to search in there. And there'll be videos that pull up to instruct you on how to help you with that certain area that you're looking at. That's huge. Plus, I think there's over 2,000 hours of instruction in there. Last thing I can tell you right now is that, I'm shooting right now a workshop that's a chipping workshop. Todd just did basically a hybrid and mid-irons workshop that's on the on-demand app. So all you members, you've got it. This week, I'm filming a chipping workshop. It's about an hour and a half of chipping drills, working your chipping, improving your chipping. Boom, right here. Huge part of the game, okay? To get your handicap in half. That will be put on the on-demand app coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Guys, all the members, you guys will get an announcement of it, and it'll be put in the on-demand app, and you'll have access to it, okay? So be watching for that. All right. So is that all the announcements for tonight? I think we're good. All right, guys, make sure, and I don't want you to miss out on the schools, make sure to get in there if you're interested in our schools. So we have a 3-day school winner. So the 3-day school winner for tonight's webinar is Don Reuter, R-O-Y-D-E-R from San Antonio, Texas. So 3-day school winner, Don Reuter from San Antonio, Texas. Don, loves San Antonio. We go down to the Riverwalk all the time. I go down there a couple of times a year with my wife. She absolutely loves it. So congratulations, and it's your choice of a 3-day school. Guys, in a week and a half, we have our 10% show, our instructional webinar. You really don't want to miss that. It's for the Single Plan Academy members. Guys, it's going to be a great show. I promise you it is. We're finally going to be able to get some work outside, get some videos outside, and get some work done in that, okay? Like I told you, the next workshop will be released real soon. There's 5 workshops on there right now that were shot in the last 8 months. Get on the on-demand app and see those. And guys, if you need anything, you want a special in clubs, you can't find something, you're talking about whatever, timg@gravesgolf.com, timg@gravesgolf.com. I'll shoot you the right person. I'll answer it personally, and we'll get you taken care of. So guys, thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll talk to you real soon.